This is the story of how a boxer from Poland tries to make it big in England, but he ends up losing the things that matter the most. The movie starts with a voiceover narration as our main character, Jedrzej, walks into his father's old boxing gym, now dusty and abandoned, and he tries to box and tell us about his life story. Then we cut to his dad, Edwin, boxing in a ring while Jedrzej watches as a child next to his uncle Czesiek. Edwin wins his championship match and qualifies to represent Poland in the Olympics, and the entire family celebrates. They return to Edwin's gym, where he teaches young Jedrzej how to box, but then they get greeted by Konstanty, a big Polish politician. He greets Jedrzej and then asks to talk to Edwin privately. By the time he leaves, Edwin and Czesiek have a falling out. Then the father and son leave the gym, but it's a very sad departure. The scene cuts to a teenage Jedrzej hoping to be a boxer as his dad keeps getting into fights and forcing Jedrzej to read his books. Edwin lost his match in the Olympic finals, so now he's a washed-up boxer. Jedrzej even does well in school and answers chemistry questions with ease, even though his heart is not in it. He runs into Czesiek and his nurse girlfriend, Gabi. They give him a lift, and Czesiek gives him chocolate and a boxing magazine and tells him not to tell his dad. Edwin finds the chocolate and the magazine and tries to go have words with Czesiek, but he collapses because of his declining health. Not long after that, he passes away, and Czesiek pours a drink on his grave. Jedrzej is sad and gets into a fight with a neighborhood kid. Czesiek catches him and slaps the crap out of him. Czesiek starts teaching him how to box, and that's when we see the grown-up Jedrzej as a promising boxer. After his training session, Czesiek tells him he's ready to fight. Immediately we cut to Jedrzej getting his ass whooped in a match, but Czesiek slaps some sense into him and gets him fired up.
Jedrzej then fights and beats his opponent. He celebrates with Czesiek and the show presenter. Then he sees a hot blonde and approaches her. She's reading a chemistry textbook, and Jedrzej impresses her with his chemistry knowledge. 3 weeks later, they got married. Her name was Kasia. Guess you can say they had great chemistry. It was during the height of communist Poland in the 1980s, so things were very bad for the country, yet Jedrzej and Kasia were in love. They liked to break into compounds and steal bricks while narrowly avoiding capture. Kasia used the bricks they stole to build a bathtub. Jedrzej then states that he wants to give them a better life. As a professional boxer, he wants them to move to England, where they have better opportunities, and he promises Kasia that she'll go to Cambridge or Oxford while he does boxing and get famous. She hesitantly agrees. He tells Czesiek about it the next day, and Czesiek tells him it's a bad idea, but Jedrzej tells him that he doesn't want to be a loser like his dad, and Czesiek tries to tell what happened, but Czesiek is stubborn and doesn't listen. Back home, Czesiek visits and tells them that if they get caught trying to sneak out of Poland, they'll go to prison. Jedrzej will lose his boxer status and no one will want to associate with them. But Kasia and Jedrzej are adamant about leaving, so Czesiek comes up with an idea. The plan is that when the Polish boxing team, which includes Jedrzej, leaves for England the next day, Kasia will pretend to be a boxing nurse, and when they get to England, they'll sneak out. He gives them the address of one of his contacts in England as well as some money to help them out. Kasia is nervous and panicking, but Czesiek smacks some sense into her. Czesiek and Jedrzej get onto the bus, surrendering their passports, when Kasia tries to submit her fake passport to the government worker in charge of the trip. The guy gets suspicious, and Kasia tells him that the bags under his eyes are a sign of liver failure, which spooks the guy. Kasia gets on the bus and they go to England. On the trip, Kasia realizes that she's pregnant. She tells Jedrzej as they attempt to escape that night, so they decide to escape the next morning, before the match. The next day, Jedrzej tells Czesiek the plan, so he guards the door to the room where Jedrzej is in, and Jedrzej sneaks out through the window, but he injures his right hand in the process. Meanwhile, Kasia manages to escape by tricking the government worker into taking a urine test because he's nervous about his health. She almost gets caught, but Czesiek sacrifices himself to help them. Kasia and Jedrzej make it to Czesiek's contact, who is also a Polish immigrant who now goes by Charles. Charles tells them to settle in and gives them a room. When Jedrzej and Kasia go looking for a boxing manager, they go into a gym and start asking for a big-time manager named Neil. They get turned away, but Jedrzej starts bragging that he can beat any fighter in Neil's gym. So this guy, Roy Barber, takes him up on his offer. Kasia warns Jedrzej about his injury and tells him not to box, but he doesn't listen and tells her to go outside the gym. He and Roy start fighting, and for a while, it seems like he's got the upper hand as Kazuya watches from outside. But soon his right hand injury gets in his way and Roy starts pounding him. Kazuya then intervenes and they get kicked out. Yedri gets mad at her and claims that he knew what he was doing. They get interrupted by a promoter named Jackie Boss. He tells them that he fixes matches and that he wants Yedri to fight for him, but only if he intentionally loses for cash. Yedri disagrees and storms off, but Kazuya keeps his card. When they get back to Charles's apartment, they find out that they were robbed and Charles was behind it. Yedri then tries to beat him up, but the police get called and he and Kazuya get arrested. Instead of being deported, they get placed at an immigration shelter where they meet an Asian dwarf couple, Yu and Nyan, who have been in the shelter for 8 months. This scares Kazuya because she doesn't want to live there for that long. Yedri promises her that it's all going to be all right. 8 months later, Yedri is training at a local gym, and he's unable to pay his gym fees. Meanwhile, that guy Roy Barber, whom Yedri fought back then, is now a major boxing star. Kazuya works with her pregnant belly and has been saving a little bit of money to get an apartment. Yedri suggests that they use the morning to pay for his gym membership. Kazuya gets mad and tells him to give up on his dream and asks that they go back to Poland. While they argue, Tasha starts feeling labor pains, and she gets rushed to the hospital. She gives birth to their son, Tadeus. She tells Yedri that she wants to go home. Yedri agrees. Then we see Yedri going to meet Jackie's boss, the loser fixer, and Jackie gives him a job. Yedri gets ready for the match, and Kazuya gives him a customized boxing robe with his name on the back. At the venue, Yu the dwarf helps Yedri get ready, and then a surprise guest comes to see him. It's Chesiek. He's been in prison, but he escaped and made it to England. This is when things get tricky. Yedri tries to explain to him that he's supposed to lose this match, but Chesiek is already giving him the winning pep talk and slapping his face. He goes for the match and fights a guy named Rascal O'Brien. He's supposed to fight Rascal and go down in the second round. Jackie Boss's boss, Nikki, is expecting that, but by the time he is supposed to lose, Chesiek talks Yedri into winning the fight, and Kazuya is watching from the stands, mortified. So Yedri fights Rascal for real, and he wins, despite Jackie's bosses protesting. Yedri and Chesiek celebrate in his room, and they are greeted by Jackie. He starts heckling them when Nikki walks in, and he's pissed because he has been building Rascal's career for 5 years, and Yedri just ruined everything. Yedri then convinces Nikki to invest in him instead, and Nikki agrees because he was also a Polish immigrant. He gives Yedri a contract, which he doesn't read and signs. Meanwhile, Kazuya is afraid of Nikki because of how Rascal and his family were being treated after he lost. She runs and tries to convince Yedri not to work with Nikki, but it's too late. Yedri is celebrating his win. He introduces Chesiek to Tadeus, and they get ready for training the next day. When they go to the gym, Nikki gets pissed at Yedri for bringing in Chesiek, and he says Chesiek can't be Yedri's trainer because only Pierre, Nikki's trainer, can do that, and it's non-negotiable. Yedri tells Chesiek that he will still be part of his team, just not his trainer. Somehow it works, and Yedri starts fighting a lot of guys, but it's all guys that Jackie arranges for him, so it's all staged. But at least he gets success, and Yedri starts getting famous, and things even get better for people in Poland, so he starts seeing fans from Poland at his show. Nikki arranges for him and Kazuya to get passports. He gives them a car and a really great house, so they're living the dream. But Kazuya doesn't trust Nikki, while Chesiek lives at the shelter. Yedri even gets the attention of a hot journalist named Eva. After one of his wins, Yedri says he's tired of lame opponents and he wants to fight Barber. As he leaves the ring, Barber is called in and he is all cool and respected, which makes Yedri angry. Then he gets interviewed by journalists, including Eva. She calls him a fraud, and then they all leave him to go interview a barber. Chesiek comes and tries to advise him. Yedri gets mad at him, insults him, and says he doesn't need him. Talk about biting the hand that fed you. He starts making noise, and Roy Barber makes fun of him. Yedri goes and punches him. They start going at it, and a challenge is declared between the two of them for the championship belt, much to Neil's chagrin. Later, Yedri is in the bathroom cleaning up. Eva walks in and gives him her address, flirtatiously. She leaves and Kasia notices, but Yedri acts like nothing's happening. They have dinner with Nikki, and while that happens, Rascal comes asking for money, but he gets shot down by Nikki. Rascal calls him a snake and leaves. Kasia starts talking about how she doesn't trust Nikki. So she and Yedri leave. They fight outside the restaurant, and Yedri says she doesn't believe in him and walks out on her. Yedri goes to Eva's apartment, and they have coitus, while Kasia goes to the shelter and spends the night with Chesiek, and they both cry together. The next morning, Yedri goes to the gym, and Kasia is waiting for him. She apologizes and asks him where he is, but he lies and says he is with Chesiek. She acts like she believes him and wishes him well. They arrange the coming Thursday night to celebrate their anniversary, as well as Tadeus's birthday. Yedri has a meeting with Nikki, who has booked that Thursday for an interview with Eva. So Yedri blows off family time and spends the day with Eva. He flirts with Eva throughout the session. Kasia watches on TV and she's sad. Yedri doesn't go home after the interview, and Eva convinces him to attend a party with her. Kasia is sad, and so is Tadeus. She calls him, and he tells her he can't make it while Eva is having coital relations with another person. Yedri hangs up and joins them. Kasia starts to cry, and Chesiek advises her not to give up. She goes home and starts crying again. When Yedri comes home the next morning, Kasia and Tadeus are gone, and Kasia gives him back his wedding ring. He gets mad, but not long after that, Eva moves into the house. Yedri starts taking drugs and sleeping with different girls. He misses training even with the championship match coming up. Pierre is angry, so Yedri tells Pierre to hit him, as Chesiek does. But Pierre is freaked out, so Yedri starts hitting himself. Nikki calls him to his office and tells him to get his head in the game, and that he doesn't care if Yedri is going through family drama. Yedri then decides he wants to stop working for Nikki, and that's when Nick tells him the reality of his contract, how he's been charging him for everything, including the house, car, restaurants, and even the shoes that Nikki bought for Tadeus. In the end, Yedri owes Nikki up to £2 million with interest. So Yedri is stuck. He goes to see Chesiek at the shelter to apologize. When he gets there, he sees that Chesiek has hanged himself. Yeah, this was not his day. At Chesiek's funeral, Yedri pours him a drink, just like Chesiek did for his father, and then Kasia shows up and greets him. He's happy to see her, but she's cold and aloof and asks to talk to him later. Yedri agrees and tells her to stop by his place. They get interrupted by Eva, so Kasia leaves. When she does stop by his place, Yedri has arranged tickets for her and Tadeus for the championship match, but she gives him divorce papers instead and walks out. Turns out she even kept a cab running. Yedri begs her not to leave, but she does. Yedri is distraught and in pain. And then we see him fighting against Roy Barber, and it's all in a daze. He doesn't even care about getting hurt. And in his hurt, he beats the crap out of Barber. He wins the title match and goes back to Poland. He places the belt in his father's grave and weeps. Then he visits his father's old gym, and he finds out that Konstanty, the big Polish politician from the beginning, is now the prime minister, and he wants to turn his father's gym into a plaza. He enters the gym and starts training. That's when he gets greeted by the government worker from the beginning who took their passports. He came to thank him and Kasia. It turns out she was right about his diagnosis, and that helped his doctor find his cancer early and save his life. So he returns their passports and hands Yedri a tape recording. It's the tape of what? Konstanty told his father all those years ago. Edwin was asked to intentionally lose the match to the Russians for political reasons, and if he refused, Konstanty was going to kill Yedri as a child. So Edwin agreed, and that's why he lost. Yedri then uses the tape to blackmail Konstanty, and he signs over ownership of the building to Yedri. Yedri renovates the gym and starts training boxers in Poland. He's a lot more stable now. He even has shared custody with Kasia. He advises Tadeus that he doesn't have to be a boxer and that he can be anything he wants. Together, the father and son leave the gym, but this time on a happy note. End of movie.